Hello, everybody. This is Daniel Bushis, and this is the first episode of the Business Power Hour. Today, we're going to cover marketing trends that are going to dominate in 2019. And we were very fortunate that we've got some really smart industry-leading experts that are going to be weighing in their options and their opinions on this topic. I'd first like to introduce Bethany Fagan from PandaDoc. If you could say hi to everybody and introduce yourself and the company that you work with.
Yeah, sure. Hi, guys. Welcome to today's show. Looking forward to having a great convo here. Again, I'm Bethany Fagan. I'm a marketing manager here at PandaDoc. For those who don't know what we do, we are an all-in-one proposal software tool. So we allow you to create, send, track, and e-sign all sorts of sales documents, from quotes, proposals, contracts. And then our biggest strength is we connect to your CRM. So you can do that right within the sales tools that you use every day.
Awesome. Thank you. And then we have Nicole Gelati from Infusionsoft. So if you could take a moment, introduce yourself and the company that you work with.
Sure, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Gelati. I'm a senior email marketing manager at Infusionsoft. And Infusionsoft's platform is really designed to help small business owners really automate their sales and marketing and business processes. We have an all-in-one tool that can be used as a CRM, also for emailing from broadcasts to very triggered campaigns. We have a sales pipeline integration piece of it, and everything from quoting to proposals to payments. So kind of everything that a small business owner needs to streamline all of their processes and grow more sales.
Awesome. Thank you. And we have Justin Lofton, the CEO of SyncSumo, as well as a few other brands too. So Justin, can you introduce yourself?
Hey guys, I'm Justin Lofton, CEO and founder of SyncSumo. I also have a handful of very successful e-commerce brands, and I've been selling online since 1998. So I've kind of touched it all over the years, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys to help you guys understand how to fast forward relationships with your leads, prospects, and customers so that you can get more from your business in 2019.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, Ryan Chapman, CEO of Fix Your Funnel.
Hey, Ryan Chapman, obviously just a Fix Your Funnel. I've been in the marketing automation world since about 2006, kind of got thrown into that. And our company, Fix Your Funnel, what we kind of really focus in on is facilitating communication with prospects and customers, making it easier to connect with people in the medium that they use every day. And so a lot of texting and phone calling involved in that, but we do a few different other things. And so I'm excited to be on the show too. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to hopefully help some people recognize some trends that are coming up in 2019 and know what to do with them, and kind of learn from what we saw in 2018.
Awesome.
Lots of exciting stuff happening.
Yeah. Well, we definitely, I mean, we've got some really smart people with some really broad topics across the board. And that was the focus is, you know, there's a lot of things that are happening. And especially if you're a small business owner or you're a marketing manager or decision maker within an organization, there's a lot of things that have happened in 2018. Obviously, with the technology and the advancements and digital marketing and other tools that can be used to help grow sales and marketing, people can kind of start to fall off track or get convoluted to figure out, what do I have to do next? What is the hot topic? So we certainly aren't going to be able to cover everything to the level of detail that we'd probably like to do. So skimming the surface, what I'd like to do first is, you know, I'll start with Bethany and say, you know, what do you think some of the trends that are going to be, you know, driving forward that you'd like to talk about for 2019, if you're a marketer or a business owner, that you might want to focus on?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things that I look forward to, at least continuing to support video content. You know, I'm still getting a lot of requests from my sales team on how can we kind of take the marketing assets that we have and make them easier to digest. So one way of that is video content, figuring out new design purposes. You know, I think we see a lot of people who are kind of jumping on the bandwagon as doing their own personal selfie type videos on LinkedIn. And I think it's a really cool trend. It's definitely interesting. It's a way to get some eyeballs, but I think it only makes sense if it works and it's a fit for your tone of voice. And, you know, if you're comfortable in front of the camera, go for it. But, you know, I think there's still going to be a way for us to kind of see the evolution of how video changes over the next year. I think that's going to be something interesting to watch.
Okay, that's a good topic. So video is one of the things you think is going to drive in 2019. Nicole, what are the one or two things, or if you have more, what are the things that you think are going to drive in 2019 for marketing trends?
I think, we were talking a little bit before the show even started about some of the things that, are going to be coming together. I think some of the different channels that will be coming together. So, email will continue to be a significant tool that businesses will be able to use. But then it's kind of taking that next step and integrating that. We're actually just starting to play around with linking directly to chat from an email. Also, how does SMS play into that? You may start off with an email and have a certain action taken, and then you can follow up with an SMS reminder when your Facebook Live event is going to be starting, or things like that. So it's kind of finding how everything will work together as a technology stacks on top of itself. And then secondly, personalization is something that's kind of been on a lot of people's roadmap for years. It's a tough nut to crack, so it will probably stay a top priority for a lot of people in the coming year, and really trying to get very relevant in terms of timing of delivering those messages, as well as taking the behaviors and kind of that persona data that has been gathered over time about a person, and making sure that you're providing that relevant content when they need it, so that when they're ready to take the next step, you're top of mind for the recipients.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is an integration of services to deliver a more streamlined communication. It sounds like did I get that right for the first?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. And then personalization is another topic you think is going to be a driving force in 2019.
Right. With so much data available, I think everyone as a consumer expects that you're going to be providing relevant messaging at the time that they need it, and not just kind of mass blasting things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And Justin, what do you think some of the trends are going to be for 2019 that people are going to want to focus on?
Well, I mean, I think, like I said, with, I spend a lot of time helping folks understand how to accelerate the relationships that they have with the leads and prospects and their customers, so they can get more from that relationship, and to provide more value in their marketplace through that. And I think that, sort of tech has been a replacement of that relationship building process for a long time. And there's a lot of friction still in these old funnels and email campaigns, and a lot of things that just used to work, but they're still trying to make it work for them. They really need to evolve to a place of simplicity and being able to message and communicate with people, on a more personal level based on where they're at in the customer journey, and removing a lot of the things that are in the way of that. I mean, the simple example is that most folks aren't paying as much attention as they should to the mobile channel. Whereas, when I'm running ads on Facebook, I mean, 85 to 90% of your traffic is going to come from a mobile device. And that's a different experience, right? On mobile, I could be pumping gas. I could be waiting in line in my groceries. I could be doing, driving a car, right? The distractions are massive in the marketplace now. So you really have to simplify your conversation throughout the customer's journey, and start removing the friction that has been built up from all this tech and, marketing tech and stuff that's been stacked up over the years. Because it's in the way of providing value.
Very interesting. And that makes a really good point too, because from a mobile experience, the way you consume content is not the same from the way you're sitting at a desktop or a computer. Less time, smaller screen size. So makes sense. So your driving force really is mobile first and simplicity in the way you communicate. Yeah.
And there's a lot of providers too, that you can't even use their tool set on a mobile device yet. And it's, and they're in the marketing tech world, right? Which it says a lot about the gap there and the opportunities for providers to, make that happen for their customers.
Good point. Good point. Ryan Chapman, your business, one of the pillars of what you focus on is mobile with text messaging. Yeah. So I'm sure you're going to have a lot of interesting things to weigh in that you think for 2019 should be a focus.
Yeah, I really think in 2018, what we saw is a lot of people started to discover texting as a channel, but that also has introduced a lot of problems. So what I see in 2019 is similar to what Nicole said. There will be this kind of bringing together of medias so they can work more in concert versus isolated channels. There's been a lot of groundwork laid that I've seen in the last couple of years by some very big companies tailored towards businesses that most businesses haven't been aware is going on. Justin's shaking his head because he really knows what I'm talking about in terms of Facebook. Facebook has laid a ton of groundwork, and I think a lot of marketing automation platforms aren't aware of how much they've done. And there's going to be some really interesting things happening. But the overall thing that I see happening in 2019 is that companies that are able to focus more on relationship, similar to what Justin was saying, I think the other two mentioned as well, but those that are able to communicate in an intimate way and focus more on relationship, which goes back to what Nicole was saying about personalization, what Bethany was saying about video, right? But those that are able to create a personal connection, and that means making yourself a little bit more available than you might have before. Because in the past, what happened is we got all these cool tools and we started hiding behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of interaction with machines, and that is driving humans to want human interaction. So those companies that can capitalize on human interaction are the ones that are actually going to win. That doesn't mean you abandon automation, but I see the trend in 2019 being those that can use marketing automation and these software tools to compensate for human nature, which is to forget, delay, postpone, mess up, and then enhance the humanity of connecting with another person. Those are going to be the businesses that are going to win in 2019. So there's a lot of different tech options out there. There's a lot of exciting, fancy things to get excited about. But if you miss that underwriting point in 2019, I think you're not going to have the year that you could have had. There's a lot of things poised to help you if you can figure out that ability to connect with a human. And if you use the technology right, it facilitates that. If you use it wrong, you actually build up a barrier, and people are going to be driven away from those companies. And the fine line between those that will succeed and those that will fail is very thin. And I think that's kind of the exciting and also the scary part of 2019.
So let's talk, because everybody's saying some of the same things. And one of them is obviously customization and personalization. So it's really driving a better customer experience and a prospect experience as well. Does everybody agree with that or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I've got some comments to build on what Ryan said too.
Yeah, please.
I think it's really, people are starting to realize, business owners and the marketplace is demanding it. It's like they are demanding a higher customer experience, and people are delivering on that. So that exponentially the expectation for businesses to step up or step out is what we're going to see in 2019. And I think there's an element too that has not really lived in the business world in the recent years, the past decade, where people expect to see vulnerability. They expect to see transparency in a business, and a lot of these tools and technologies in the marketplace now can allow for that. Getting on video and being yourself and saying, "Hey, we can't do it all. We just launched a new, community. We're building a tribe because we need your help to help us bring our value to a marketplace." Where in the past it was, wasn't a round table. It was a guy at the head of the table telling everybody else what to do. And I think we're seeing a shift in humanity, as Ryan said,
Like Justin was saying, and jump in anybody else, but what I'm saying is there has been this kind of thing that built up with the way that technology was going, where a lot of people started to speak at people. So they speak at the prospect, they speak at the lead, they speak at the customer, but they don't speak with. And so that's the big trend of 2019, is figuring out, how do I speak with? And speaking with doesn't mean you can't go one to many. Like to Bethany's point about video and what Justin was just getting at, you can still use mediums that allow you to communicate with many people all at once. But it needs to be in a way that is social, in the sense that you allow people to come in and create those communities around your business. And it's fascinating. I was looking for a suit the other week, and I went to Macy's. Now Macy's is a well-known retailer. This Macy's looked like a yard sale. There was clothes all over the place. There was nobody at the checkout stand. And people are complaining about retail is getting their lunch taken by Amazon, because Amazon's able to deliver what people want in a semi-personalized way. But this is why 2019 is such a pivotal year. You're either going to have your lunch taken by a big person, big company that can automate and do all these things quicker and faster than you, or you must get super personal. Mm-hmm. And it's not an either or in terms of, do I use technology or do I get very personal? But you either have to be someone that has 300 million in the bank that you can tap in to do some amazing things, or you must be super personal.
Mm-hmm.
And, I ended up buying a suit from a retailer that was just provided good service. I didn't care how much I was going to spend. I was at a very wide range of pricing. I was happy to spend. I ended up going with the person who could actually provide the service because they actually had human interaction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
that's a good point.
this is retail as well as online. And so if you can understand that core concept, that it's about creating that connection and utilizing these fantastic tools that are available to do that in each stage of your business, it is an exciting year.
That's an interesting point. And I'm going to direct this question to you, Nicole. I own a marketing agency, and so we work with clients literally across the world. And one of the things that we see with not only just small business owners, but actually I get email from, billion-dollar companies that seem to be making the same mistakes. It's kind of what Ryan was speaking to, which is using email as a method to talk at people and deliver only sales messages or basically asks, where the communication doesn't have a lot of value. It's basically saying, buy this thing, do this thing, and there's really no value to the customer. So what are you seeing at Infusionsoft with the email platform? Or better yet, what might be some advice or suggestions for people to get out of that cycle? Because in 2019, everybody's saying it's all about the customer experience.
Yeah, and I think one thing kind of ties back to some of kind of Bethany's area as well is being able to provide more than just that ask that you're talking about. So it's being a thought leader and being able to provide content and other things that are relevant to people who may not even be interested in buying, but you're able to serve some of their other needs, as well as establish yourself as a leader in your area of expertise as well. So I think it's kind of providing that aspect to everything that you're doing. So you're taking it beyond just take this action to benefit my business. And still being relevant to them in providing something that's useful.
Nicole, I kind of gave you a heads up pre-show about this, but this is a big question that's been on my mind. Is I had my book on my desk, and in page 8, I talk about the economics of attention currency, which is this concept that each interaction that you have with somebody in terms of delivering something, trying to communicate with them, has either a cost or an addition to this balance that you have of attention in the mind of the prospect. And so if you're just asking, what happens is, even from a psychological level, if we're not getting value from somebody, we start to delete their communication from our mind. Even if it shows up in front of us, our mind will ignore it for us because we're like, there's nothing for me in that communication. But do you think that machine learning is impacting the email inbox on those emails that we get, but we never even engage with, to the point where, our email service provider is going to push those kind of below the fold, so to speak, or kind of hide them from us if we're not engaging with those emails?
Yeah, I think Gmail is a good example. I think Google does so much in the background to really be analyzing big data, and I think that's definitely a concern. Where you may not get that inbox placement that you saw previously. It may not even be going into the promotions tab. It may be going into the spam filter, just based on some of the algorithm changes that may be coming, as companies like Google try to make sure that they're providing relevant, useful tools to all of their users. Definitely a concern.
Dan, do you think that machine learning is something everybody understands, or is that something that maybe Nicole might explain a little bit further so people can understand how big a deal this is? Yeah,
Nicole, do you want to expand on that?
I'm not really an expert on machine learning myself, but I think it's. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go. I was going to say this. This might be one thing that you can potentially mention, and I know there's a lot of people that work in your department that specialize in specific areas, especially when the complexities come in from Google, Outlook, and the different ESPs and the inboxes and how those algorithms are written. But, and Ryan, you can weigh in on this too. One of the things that we always suggest, and maybe it's wrong, maybe I'll learn from you all, is when we say to our clients, stop loading your emails with images and your logo at the top of your email, because that's something that Google knows. If you're sending an email to a friend or a family member, you're not loading up your logo and your banner and all these pretty pictures and colors. They want to see low text. Is that something that's still a driving force as an indicator?
I would like Nicole to weigh in on this too, if you have anything to add. But here's what, see, I started doing a lot of heavy email back in 2006 for our company that we had. We were doing 2 to 3 events every week, and we were trying to get 50 to 100 people in each of those events. At the time, email was like the media that we had to work with. And so, we did a lot of emailing. And at that time, the rules were fairly simple. It was looking at what's the ratio of image to text. That was like a part of their algorithm that was pretty common across the board. What words are you using? Are you using any of the keywords that indicate to them that it's spam? So there's kind of these archaic rules that you could use. Now, when you fast forward to today and in 2019, machine learning is growing so fast that I think most people don't comprehend how fast it grows. With machine learning, what they do is they essentially train a computer to recognize patterns and in action and interaction as well as in content. And so, yeah, there could be some issues with the image and the text or even a keyword, but I think that becomes less and less of an issue, and more of it has to do with the value of the content as perceived by the individual recipient. So I could have in your mailbox, top of the page placement, and then another prospect put in spam. Mm-hmm. And so it's not going to be universal across the board, although there could be some aggregate in terms of, 99% of the people are not looking at all at this email from all of our recipients. We're just going to go ahead and arbitrarily lower it all the way to the bottom because we just figured nobody will want it. But I think what you're going to see more and more is actually a tailored or a curated email inbox, which means if you have engagement with emails, then it's going to rise to the top. If there is no engagement with that email sender or that email domain, then you're going to see it lower to the bottom. It'll be on a user by user basis, which means it's really critical that you nail the message, and to Nicole's earlier point, that you tailor that message to what they actually care about. Mm-hmm. Because if you try and go generic, it may end up hurting you across the board, not because that person's marking as spam, but across the board, the email service provider, depending on how they approach this machine mm-hmm. learning and this curation of the email inbox, pulling you down.
Yeah.
Totally.
To jump in here, I think a little bit, I've learned in the last couple of quarters and just promoting our webinars to our current customer base and our current trialers, I've switched it up even and gone from like a nice, pretty marketing template to something very basic, very just like that I had crafted myself. And I've actually changed it from coming from Team PandaDoc to having it come from me personally, and just kind of kept the message very short, very sweet. And we've seen our leads grow about 20% from that. So like it's still kind of taking it back to basics a little bit and really kind of saying like, okay, a one-to-one personal touch, and going back to that personalization conversation we were having earlier. Yeah. I think even just kind of dialing it back and maybe some of the things that you've done in the past have worked, but maybe trying something new like this has definitely paid off for PandaDoc. So I think to Ryan and Nicole's point, it's definitely important to kind of, take those things into consideration.
Yeah.
I think one of the important things I definitely want to try to cover today, and Bethany, I think you'd be a perfect person to talk about, is really when it gets into the sales experience. Now, I'm not talking about the typical, I'm going to buy a pair of shoes, I'm going to go online and I'm going to go to Nike.com, buy it, and they're just going to ship it to me. So it's really not the e-commerce. It's more of the traditional sales where there's a contract or there's some kind of proposal that has to go out and they have to review it. And we all know the muddied communication that has to go back and forth in the review and the discussion and negotiation and the sign off and then the payment and all that stuff. And you guys, selfishly, I know my agency uses your service, and that's why I reached out to you guys, because I think you've revolutionized how that process is with technology, and what you've all done has been able to transform it. So can you talk a little bit about that because typically I think what some people are still doing is, especially in the agency world, you have a great experience of, okay, we're going to work together, and then they get this contract or this proposal, and it's very cut and dry, and there's no now we got to go to email to discuss the negotiation or get on a phone, but there's no track record. And so without me stealing all your thunder, what are some of the things that you think are a driving trend that really kind of go back to what we've talked about, the backbone of the customer experience, So what do you see in that kind of process that you all play so well in?
Yeah, I think what we know, right, is that everybody is always doing their own research online. And a lot of times, you know, they've already seen your website. They kind of have a general understanding of what you're doing and who you are. And I think there's got to be an easier way for us to kind of just hone in on the fact that, like, hey, we know that you have done your research. You kind of know about who we are and what we do, but like, let's tailor your use case more to kind of like how we can provide a better service for you. So I think to your point, Dan, is, you know, you have this call, you really want to showcase what your agency does and in a better light. And sometimes a boring Word document doesn't do it. Sometimes a PDF just doesn't do it. There's got to be a better way for you to kind of make that one-to-one connection a little bit more personal, add a little more flavor, if you will, to a kind of a boring stag document. And that's what PandaDoc can do. So I know we have a ton of agencies and some other media companies that, you know, add photos and videos and really can kind of showcase their work. And it can really apply to any industry. So like if you're a construction company and you want to showcase some great new project that you've done, it's kind of hard to add those images in just a boring PDF, and it takes a ton of time. PandaDoc can allow you to drag and drop those kinds of images and kind of create that connection. I think another important thing is kind of supplying some social proof in your messaging as well. So sure, you can say like, hey, Bob, I can help grow your social media by X%. But if you don't have any kind of customer testimonial or kind of case study that you would want to include in your proposal, it can kind of fall flat. So a lot of times there's not a lot of room to add those in PDFs or in a Word document. So that's another great use of kind of content that marketing can create for a sales team to drag and drop into a proposal. And then I think just the other thing to your point, Dan, about tracking and measurement. So of course you sent this beautiful, nice, pretty proposal, but now how do I even know that my recipient even got it, right? It's kind of goes into this black hole of an email inbox and can kind of get lost in the way. So we're able to tell you when somebody has opened, viewed, and completed your proposal. We can even show you how much time they've spent on a certain page. So if you notice that they're stuck on the pricing table, maybe they have a question about pricing and the pricing options, it's a perfect opportunity for a rep to pick up the phone and say, hey, Bob, I noticed that you were spending some time on the pricing. Is there anything else that I can help clarify? You know, I'm happy to provide maybe some different optional items that you can kind of fill in for yourself and pick the best bet for your budget. So yeah, I could go on for the next 30 minutes. That's how much time we have, but you know, I don't want to steal everybody else's thunder, but I think the point is just really applying the personalization to your proposal and that end of the sales cycle. I think everybody knows how to do that in the beginning of the sales cycle, but it's even still important at the end of the sales cycle too, to continue that conversation.
Ryan, what did you have to say?
To your and Bethany's point, what you're explaining here is also a trend for 2019, which is for businesses to start identifying their technology stack.
Yeah.
So there was this tendency for a period of time to try and do everything all in one. And in fact, I know like softwares like Infusionsoft, that was kind of one of their themes for a while. But the reality is that each company is a little bit different in terms of their needs and demands. And all-in-ones usually don't do everything great. They do some things really well, and then they really suck at other things. And that's just the nature of doing an all-in-one. And so a technology stack is the new reality, and that's something you need to be able to understand that concept and the value of it in 2019. So my technology stack may cost me $1,000 a month, but that is actually going to do the work of maybe 3 or 4 employees, but more reliably. And it's going to allow then the rest of my employees to focus more on their humanity and their connection. And so tools like PandaDocs and Infusionsoft and SyncSumo, what they all facilitate is you to build this technology stack, and that's true for a lot of the automation tools that are out there. What you don't want to look for is one thing that does everything, unless you're a really small business and you're on a real low budget. But as you're building a business, what you want to do is start developing your technology stack. And in that stack, you want to make sure you have the tools that are going to facilitate your type of business and what you're trying to accomplish.
I'd love to add to that. I think that's a really good point. And I'm going to first make a silly example, but when you use it in an example, it kind of makes sense when you transition that thought into technology and the technology stack is, hey, I don't want my landscaper doing oral surgery in my mouth, right? Because the landscaper is really good at what he does, and the dentist or the oral surgeon is really good at what he does. And so for me to come to one person and expect them to do everything is crazy. In the real world, we don't do that. But for some way, when we go into the technology world, we expect this one platform to absolutely do everything. And not only that, but do everything at the highest level possible. That's impossible. Not even Amazon, which is a behemoth, can do that.
That kind of thinking, I think, comes from maybe not being overwhelmed. I'm going to put it to that, because when you're overwhelmed, sometimes you're like, okay, I can't think through what needs to be done. And so you just look for the simple solution. And the simple solution is probably a good first step. So for people to take that first step, I think I applaud them for taking that first step and finding something that they're like, okay, this is going to meet most of my needs. Because that's probably what you need at that stage in your business. But as your business grows and mature and you can create some breathing room, what you'll discover is, okay, yeah, that really does good at X, Y, and Z. But A, B, and C, it's not even in the realm of where I need it to be. So I'm going to need to find something that does A a lot better, because that's a core component of my business. And then doing that. So I think, the marketing automation platforms that recognize, okay, they need to start thinking about being a CRM and a hub and not an everything, because they won't be able to do everything as well as a technology stack. And what I'm saying is the companies that are really growing in terms of being those hubs are those that have recognized that role, and they've taken that and they say, okay, that's what I am. The ones that are struggling are the ones that are trying to be everything to everyone, because they're jack of all trades and a master of none. Yeah. And so they end up spreading themselves too thin. They can't focus and harness their power on where, what their superpower is, where they do amazing things. So that's where you want to be able to identify what are those superpowers that I need in my stack in order for me to be really successful. And in 2019, I think that's going to be a big deal, because again, it goes back to that foundational principle of connection.
So
yeah.
let's,
I was just going to make one comment there, building on what Ryan's saying. I think it's, I think business owners and, businesses as a whole are hopefully going through that phase that I think a lot of individuals are, where you're saying, what are our unique gifts in this marketplace? We've been spinning our wheels for a handful of years now, really trying to grow, but we're not really seeing the movement that we thought we would. And it's likely because they either think they're a commodity, or they haven't really fully understood their unique value in a marketplace, so that they can focus their, attention and intention in their market on that, so that all their messaging and how they create a tech stack that supports that unique gift that they are bringing to the marketplace can shine,
I think that's a really good point. And that I think this is tying together very well, because if you look at the customer experience and what your customer experience is, because what your DNA or your core values and your traits are, then you'll be able to develop your technology stack to serve your customer or clients, and then effectively move them through every stage. So if we look at, say, for example, PandaDoc, which is towards the end of the sales cycle, where you have a contract or proposal and things like that, you identify the stages, like was the proposal sent? Was it viewed? Did they sign it? Did they make their deposit? And then you use your technology stack to say, okay, at these stages, these are friction points, and these are friction points that if they go through the next thing, then ultimately that's going to get to the conversion or the sale. Then you can use your marketing automation system to fire out the right email to the right person based off of the right information, and even use a technology stack like a text message if they viewed something, but it's been a while and it's been too long that you think that we need to have a conversation again. And that goes all the way back up to the top of the funnel, which is, hey, we're going to run Facebook ads, or we're going to do messenger bots to make sense.
So now this brings up a really important point, and I think everybody can weigh in here. There are challenges that come with this shift, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at most people's marketing, and you were to go to any of their websites and say, okay, what contact information are they collecting on a lead? 99% of them are going to be name and email.
Right.
Well, when you do that, you've made your choices about how you're going to communicate with the customer. You don't realize it maybe, but you've made your choices. Now, the beautiful thing is the choices have enhanced from where they were maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So like using a platform like Justin's SyncSumo, I can take that email address and possibly start targeting them with Facebook ads, which means Facebook ads are not just a way to introduce people to your company, but they're actually a way to communicate beyond, the initial interaction. So I could possibly do that, but beyond that, all I can do is email. And so now I'm making Nicole's job harder, because now I'm going to try and make email do everything, and email can't do everything. And we just acknowledge that in this conversation, that it is an important component, but it can't be the way that we communicate. And so that's the big challenge is, okay, so now how do I make it so that my prospects can justify giving me more contact information? And that's the real challenge. And that's why the real secret then to what we're talking about is you have to become very empathetic as a business owner, empathetic to the experience and the needs of your prospects. What is it that they really want, right? Because and I say this and people sometimes don't like it, but I'm like, nobody wants what you're selling. Mm-hmm. They want what they believe it will give to them.
Which is also an emotional outcome, right? Because at the end of the day, no one wants to buy a tube of toothpaste, right? But at the end of the day, they
want
want
software or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What they really want is they want what they believe that thing will give them. And so
Absolutely.
You have to be really clear on that, because messaging is going to give you power to ask for more contact information.
Yeah,
that's an offer will make up for anything that you couldn't have done when you were just asking for name and email alone.
And so, they're buying experience, right? They're buying experience. Yeah. They're buying a relationship with you. And a lot of business owners have put up blockades, as you said earlier, Ryan, that they've got to overcome that challenge, because it's a different.
I have somebody going through a bunch of prospective customers' websites, and just looking at the websites and collecting some contact information off of them. And the alarming part is how many don't have even a phone number on there, or any communicate, you have to dig into the privacy policy to even find their address, type of thing. That may sound invasive to people, but the reality is if I can't do that, you're
not transparent. Mm-hmm.
But isn't that's like an old trend, and tell me if I'm mistaken here, but I feel like, years past, that was the thing of, you can't get a hold of us. So you're going to have to pay in order to actually talk to a real person. You're going to have to go through a chat experience. And let's talk about that because we're talking about customization.
So what you just talked about there is what's called a filter. So there's two things in marketing and sales. There's filters and accelerators. And so a judicious use of filters and accelerators is critical for a company to be able to grow. Because I only have a certain number of people that work on my team. I don't have an infinite number. And so the hours that they can spend interacting with people are limited. And so you will use filters and you will use accelerators to move the right people to actually be spending that humanity time we talked about earlier. Mm-hmm. And so learning the difference between accelerators and filters, and when you should apply them, when you shouldn't. Like in Bethany's case, where they're focusing on proposals, well, we don't want any filters there, because at that point, we've spent a ton of money to get them to that point. We want almost all accelerators. And so we want to do everything we can. But on the front side, maybe you want some filters, and those can be put in, but you don't want to filter out the customer, the potential customer. And that's the tricky part. And that's where the trend is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, Ryan, to your point, we've done a lot of work internally at PandaDoc to kind of prove whether or not we want to roll out 24/7 support to all of our customers. So, when we were first started, we had this amazing template library, and that was the way that we captured a lot of leads, right? We said, hey, download this free template, try PandaDoc, you can kind of send it out, customize it, whatever. But what we learned is that, a lot of those people were kind of coming off as like, they just needed a template, they checked that box, and then they moved on. So they weren't interested in PandaDoc because we had served their point, right?
Satiated their need. Yeah,
exactly. So like, how do we now figure out new channels to open new opportunities to collect leads that we can actually grow and nurture throughout the entire funnel? And I think, kind of talking about your on-off switch is we had to do some pricing research and some other research into our own personas and really dig into, okay, who is our ideal customer profile that we really want to serve, and how do we reach them? And then how do we make sure that they can self-serve themselves if they need to, and they can kind of just download a template and pay for PandaDoc and only need one seat and move on their way. But then how do we capture those bigger fish that we want to send to the sales team and have them kind of talk to them and work and maybe set up a demo and a really personalized demo, maybe even convert a document that they're sending out frequently into PandaDoc and really show the value of how it can expedite their sales workflow. So yeah, I think, and that's to your point, we've recently introduced 24/7 support, and we've opened an office in Manila to support that effort. And then we've also gotten a sales phone number again. We didn't have one before, and now we've put it back on the pricing page in our FAQ section, and hopefully it starts to pay off for us. So like,
I don't even think people comprehend how much not having a phone number on your website costs you.
Yeah.
Because here's who calls.
Yeah.
The person who wants to buy.
Yeah.
The person who doesn't want to buy doesn't call. Right. So the only person you're blocking by not having a phone number on your website
for sales,
is the person who actually wants to do business with you.
Well, it's funny.
They may have a concern, but
yeah, we had our old phone number. I didn't even realize somebody had established a Yelp page for us, which I didn't even know that existed until recently, because the old phone number was on there. And a woman had called in complaining that she's getting our sales calls on this. I guess Google had reassigned the phone number to her, and now it's going to her. So I had to scramble this week to figure out how to change that phone number across
a Google Voice number, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So it was a lesson learned for us this week too. So because
she was getting all your sales calls.
She was getting phone calls. I mean, they weren't like a lot. But,
no, see, that's super transparent, Bethany. I appreciate you sharing that, because that's a big lesson for people. Yeah. People don't realize the phone is where people go. Like, it's very interesting. Infusionsoft, Clayton Mask has a story that he tells about the formation of Infusionsoft. And he says, we sent an email broadcast, through their software, and then the phone started ringing. And most people skip right over that. They just go, oh, email broadcast. They don't think about the fact that the phone, in other words, sales happen in conversation.
Yeah.
Sales don't happen outside of conversation. Now, they may happen with marketing on a web page or in an ad or in a video, but all sales happen in conversation. And so it's critical to understand that. And that comes back to the 2019 trend that we're talking about, which is connecting as a human while using technology to give you leverage and mitigate the impact of your human nature, which is to forget, avoid contact, do all the stuff that we shouldn't do that destroys a business.
So if for the people that are listening and watching to this, that are business owners, and they're saying, okay, well, this sounds great, but what's the actionable thing, or what's the takeaway for this personalization? Would you say that the value of the customer experience is weighted heavier in 2019, that will play into, say, everything from the pricing of the product to everything else?
No question.
Yeah. I mean, you can do the race to the bottom if you want, but my experience has been, we each have a limited number of days on the planet. We don't know how many days we have. I could go outside and I could get hit by a car and die right today. Or I could live another 40 years. I don't know how many days I have. And because of that, if you're going to work, you might as well work on something that's going to do well for you, instead of something that is just a drudgery. So the race to the bottom is always a loser. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. So if that's the case, then what you have to go is you maybe want to go more premium. And if you go premium, people pay premium pricing for premium attention, which means you have to create a great experience for that customer. Now, that doesn't mean that you give up your life to do that. There's a lot of ways to accomplish that, but you want to give that to them. Well, that means you have to start opening doors that you haven't opened in the past. And so from a technical standpoint, like rubber hits the road, you have to start thinking about, how do I open doors to communicate with people in other mediums besides email? That's a very first step that people can take, is answer that question. How can I engage with prospects and leads in a way that opens up more doors than just email? So, and that can be on Facebook, it could be on any of these different platforms, it could be on the phone, and it may even be an email. A lot of people use email, just like you're saying, as a speak at. So start looking at your emails, and to Bethany's point, maybe make them shorter, maybe make them start a conversation.
Well,
so
and
instead of just ask a question, engage.
Absolutely. And what Bethany said earlier, I mean, I think a good place to start, if you've got well-developed campaigns and you want more from those email campaigns, and before you move on to, putting in, SyncSumo or Fix Your Funnel into the tech stack in 2019, it's like, take that novel you wrote as emails from, 2008 that you're still using and turn it into a video with you. Fast forward that relationship with the video. People expect it, and they don't have the attention and time, even if they want to, even me personally. I mean, the emails I never read are the ones I want to read because they're usually so long, but I get so many other emails and I have other distractions. So if you can, take those messages and make them in video format, be a little vulnerable, be a little more transparent than maybe you have in the past, and speak with them, as Ryan talked about, through video, you're going to fast forward that relationship and they're going to want to exchange value with you a lot faster than what you've seen before in your business.
I agree. Nicole, question for you, because all of this is kind of, in my mind, as it's sinking in, I'm thinking, it sounds to me like if you're a business owner, what you would want to do is really look at simplifying how you're doing your marketing, obviously having the right message to the right people, using not just email, but the other thing that we haven't really talked about, but it seems like this makes sense, is if we need to make a better customer experience, we need to streamline and hopefully maybe automate some of our internal processes. So are those things that you think that businesses that are winning at this game are doing too? They're streamlining their internal processes to have better experiences?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, some of the areas that people kind of get bogged down in are repetitive tasks that, you have to get done every day, but it's not necessarily helping you move your business forward, or, it takes away from the time that you could be spending coming up with strategies and implementing new things to help drive your business. So it's really, those repetitive things, and disorganization is another big thing. So especially for small businesses, as they're getting started, they don't have the technology in place. They might be working off of, Post-it notes and spreadsheets and have things all over the place. And that really is a killer for productivity and taking away, again, from that time that you could be using to really, drive your business. So it's, anything that anyone can do to really create those processes to streamline the day-to-day tasks and help with organization can really pay off in leaps and bounds to get you to a place where you can focus on the bigger picture.
Couldn't agree more. Ryan, I have a question for you. So a question came in from Stuart. And so Stuart asks, he says, as email becomes more difficult to deliver and get seen, and marketers look at other channels, how do you think it will be until SMS is flooded and then it's filtered the same as email is filtered now?
Okay, that's a really insightful question, because the truth is they've already started. So carriers are actually being more aggressive on texting. And so people that thought that they could just come and take their bad habits from email and start doing them in texting are killing their deliverability. And the nice part is your phone number that you're sending from is in isolation. So just because somebody else is doing it, what the carriers are doing, they're getting super aggressive about making sure that what you just said doesn't happen. So right now, if you tried to send out 1,000 messages and you've already developed this reputation of just blasting people, not engaging with people, the carriers aren't even delivering your message. They're accepting them and then they're throwing them in the garbage. So it's a little more ruthless than even email, because email would throw it in a spam folder. With the carriers, they're just going to throw it straight in the garbage. The recipient doesn't even know you tried to send them a message. It's not like they can go check spam and find it. So you do already have a reputation when it comes to your phone number. That's why you own one of these phone numbers, and the carriers are able to see a lot of things, right? So we kind of have like DKIM and this SPF record stuff on the email side. On the phone side, carriers know who owns that phone number in terms of who's taking care of receiving and delivering messages for it. So let's say it's like Twilio or Plivio or one of these other application to person, softwares or carriers. Yeah, those platforms. So what happens is if AT&T gets a message, it can tell that message is from Plivio. Well, now it knows it's from Plivio. Now it can decide it's going to throw it through a filtering process that's more intense than the one that comes from AT&T to Verizon, or from Verizon to another. And so that's already happening in messaging. So this is why it comes down to what we've seen in terms of, for texting, what's been the most powerful is just one-to-one communication. So you can do broadcasting and our software supports that, but I don't recommend it for the most part. What I recommend is more tactical communication with text messaging. So part of an existing campaign where, like you said, somebody said you send out the email and they don't take the action you're hoping to from the email. reference the email from a text message.
Right.
Now, you can't do that on every email you send, but on really important ones you can. And when
Absolutely.
you do that, it's unbelievable. We get stories all the time in our user group about people talking about how, hey, I didn't get your email. Well, that's because you unsubscribed 5 years ago or whatever. You know, that was the story that the guy told. He said, well, resubscribe me. I want to get it, you know? And so, you know, that's the way that you start using messaging. When you do that, what we've noticed, if you have a high back and forth ratio, meaning you're interacting with people or speaking with people instead of at people, you won't have problems. But if you start trying to do bad email practices in texting, they're going to cut you off so fast to make your head spin.
Yeah.
You won't even have any deliverability whatsoever. And so there's different things that need to be done, and they're more technical. I don't think we need to get into them here, but you need to know texting will become a bigger deal. But if you try to be a bad actor, it's more ruthless than email ever was or ever will be, because of the relationship of that carrier. The carrier does not want to lose, because people make misassociations. And so the carrier is going to be super aggressive protecting that. And they're also rolling out something called RCS in 2019, which is another reason why. And they're going to collect more money from businesses because they're going to want to direct business communication through RCS. And so there's going to be an additional fee that the carriers charge on that. So that's a quasi prediction for 2019, is that it'll have some benefits, but it'll also have some cost. And so we'll see the cost of text messaging maybe go up a little bit as well.
So have better communication. Justin, I know you had something to say.
Yeah, just, you know, we're coming up on the hour, and I just wanted to make sure that we kind of put we finish with a strong positive you know, prediction too, because we've talked about a lot of the challenges, and I think everybody that's on the call, you know, and the audience understands what those are, and they're feeling them in their business likely, and that, you know, I think that the positive side of things is that it is going to continue to get easier and easier for small to medium-sized businesses to compete in this worldwide market. So not only worldwide, but also competing in the spaces that big brands have competed for many, many decades, and the small businesses have really not had an opportunity to work in there. I mean, Facebook has definitely fast forwarded that. But you know, as you see the TV game changing, right? Everybody's moving away from traditional cable and all this satellite TV stuff, and it's all moving into digital. And what that's going to do in those platforms is allow small to medium businesses to now reach those eyeballs and, you know, see TV as a placement in Facebook and Instagram and Google. You know, all these players are going to open up those advertising platforms as they continue to grow their subscriber base in TV. And small to medium businesses will have a huge opportunity to take that value message that we're talking about they need to refine at this stage, and leverage it in the biggest platform, you know, across the world.
I'm curious from Justin's perspective, what do you see with Facebook? Because I know you do a ton of spend with Facebook. Video views was a really big deal in 2018. What do you see as being the best way to market on Facebook going forward?
Yeah, and I think it's been about, you know, kind of, that's a great question as we work through this hour here. It's all about video, and it's about getting more native, getting more open and more vulnerable and transparent in your business, and using, you know, like Bethany talked about, you know, changing it from just your business speaking to them to an individual or a person. You know, we've seen this even in the TV space, right? All this reality TV, and that's grown huge. And basically we expect everything to kind of be reality TV when we watch it. And that's kind of what's playing out in the Facebook and Instagram feeds. And even now LinkedIn. LinkedIn's done a great job of really fast forwarding and knocking off basically what Facebook's done, and their feed looks very similar. And you're seeing a lot of that native video, and people that work for the company kind of being, you know, vulnerable and transparent, shooting videos inside the company fortress, you know, and sharing what goes on inside, so that people can, you know, feel confident doing business with those folks, and really creating that personal relationship that hasn't existed in previous years with businesses.
That's a great point.
Sorry, Dan, really quick. I think to touch on Justin's point too, going back to that competing thing. I mean, we've recently kind of looked at the values and the core kind of comp of what we want to preach at PandaDoc, and that's something that we're really looking to do too, is we want to make it easy for small businesses to compete with those larger organizations, right? And I think that even speaks at the proposal level too, by giving them the ability to like add certain specific elements to really kind of showcase who a company is and what they do and why they're the right fit for a potential prospect, I think is super important. And that's something that, you know, we're going to continue to work into PandaDoc, and how can we make that easy for small businesses at that level. So I think that's a very good point.
Yeah. So we've got Justin, really good advice about video, going native, being honest. Bethany, transparency, talking to the right audience with the right topic. Nicole, these are all tips. So as we're kind of getting to the top of the hour, Nicole, what is your core tip or your tips that you suggest moving forward people should start to focus on?
I think we touched a little bit on mobile, but mobile is just kind of where everything is headed. So being sure that whatever you're doing has that experience at the center of it. And then also, I think it's challenging the status quo. I think we kind of touched on this throughout as well, but just you can't assume that just because something has worked in the past, it's going to continue to. So any way that you can try to test and continue to learn and continue to optimize and utilize all your channels effectively is something that will continue to help you grow your business going forward. Perfect.
Ryan, tip or two tips for people 2019, what should they do? I know you have more, but give me two.
I think the big thing is just get really clear on what your customer needs so that you can get your messaging tighter. Because of all the things that they were just talking about, if you utilize a real clear message on top of that, that's going to go a long way. I think another thing is get a real tight sales mechanism in place that allows for personal connection. Ollie Bilson has a really interesting one he's done. We talked on Social Media Examiner recently, which is phone funnel framework. And that's an interesting one to listen into and look about. But what I've noticed across the board is that if you start thinking about how do I communicate with my customers on a more personal level, you're going to win. It's just, there's so many people that don't, that if you do and everything else is the same, you win. And so if people can figure out how do I start communicating a more personal level with people in an automated fashion, but that still allows the one-to-one communication, that would be my biggest tip. If you do that in 2019, if you incorporate that in some way, I believe 2019 could be your best year ever. We've seen many companies double and triple revenues simply by adding that element into their process.
Great.
So that's a big deal.
Personalization, clarifying the message, simplicity, willingness to test other channels, and making sure that you've got the right message at the right time to the right people. Ryan, I'm going to start with you. So if people want to learn more about your business or potentially be able to get in touch with either yourself or your team, where would they go online to do that?
They could go to fixyourfunnel.com. If they wanted to see how texting works, they could text demo to 760-621-8199. They'll find that phone number on fixyourfunnel.com too. But then they could experience how you open that door for messaging, which is really going to be critical.
Perfect. Nicole, where can people learn more about Infusionsoft?
Infusionsoft.com is a great starting place. We also have some little templates within that where you can enter your information and see how you're added as a contact and see the interplay between the tool and the lead. So it's kind of fun to play around in the tool.
Cool. And you guys have like a new system too, right? So there was the classic Infusionsoft, and you guys have rolled out with something exciting too for people that maybe have checked it out before. Do you want to give like a quick little snippet about that?
Sure. It's geared toward people who are really looking to get organized, create a CRM, and remove some of those repetitive tasks. So it has appointment setup features within it, so you can easily set up appointments without going back and forth. You can even scan a business card and have that added as a contact. So there are a lot of ways to really get someone started as they're just building a CRM and working through kind of those automations.
Awesome. Bethany, for PandaDoc, if people want to send out proposals or even client agreements, anything at all, where would they go to be able to see PandaDoc and check that out to see if it's a good fit for them?
Yeah, so pandadoc.com is the best place. We do have a product tour on there, so you guys can kind of take a look at the step-by-step process. We do also offer a free 14-day trial, and you can access that at signup.pandadoc.com. And I will plug that we do offer a integration with Infusionsoft through some PandaDoc partners. So if anybody has any other questions or wants to reach out to me, you can reach me at bethany@pandadoc.com. Super simple. I'd be happy to hear from anyone. So thanks.
Awesome. And Justin, amongst all the many things that you have that you guys do, you guys run Facebook ads, you have an agency. So where might they find out more information from you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, the best place to go is syncsumo.com. We connect platforms such as Infusionsoft. We just added Kartra as an integration and many others. So you can connect your email contacts and your most important marketing systems with the Facebook advertising platform. And we have a 30-day trial for $1. So you can, use it and get integrated and see how it works for you and how you can start to put the right messages in front of the right people at the right time, all the time, automatically. And certainly you can check out justinlofton.com to get to some of my other stuff. That would probably be the best way to see what I'm all about.
Awesome. I'd like to thank you all for being part of the show. We're obviously, we're going to have to ask each of you back to go into a deep dive to the specific things, because I know we only scratched the surface of that. But anything else, if anyone has any questions that's watching the show or they want to get information from the businesses that have been on it, we'll be happy to send that out as well. And so I hope that each of you has a great 2019, and thank all of you for being on this show. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
All righty.